Hi, I'm Alicia. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 4 points of the pelvic diamond, a little bit about what's going on at the base of the body. But before I get started, I want to say that I'm seated up on a block and a blanket. And the reason for this is because when we elevate the hips, the knees can position in this cross-legged seat a little bit lower than the hips. And this is important when we're trying to release or relax the pelvic floor or we're dealing with any back pain issues. We want the muscles, the deep hip flexors, particularly the psoas muscle, to be able to stop gripping. And when we're seated in cross-legged seat and our knees are high, those muscles actually grip and hold. So this is a nice way to encourage a release. If you had a marble and you set it on your leg, you would want it to roll toward the knee. All right, this is Polly Pelvis. She's my little model. She helps me teach the things I like to teach. So looking into the pelvic bowl, I've removed the organs. You can see all the red tissue, the muscle tissue there. And you probably can't see in the video that there's many layers. Now, if I flip Polly this direction, which is what your gynecologist would see if Polly were going to have a pelvic exam, that's the way that she's facing. You can see, again, there's some musculature down here. And I'm going to take off the most superficial layer. All right, so if we're talking about the 4 points of the pelvic diamond, we're looking at bony landmarks. The first is going to be the pubic bone, which is that bone right above your clitoris, where if you've ever bumped it, very ouchy. And some people have a pubic shear and all kinds of things going on after birth and stuff. So you may or may not be very familiar with this bone, but I'd like you to press on it now so that you really feel it. Pubic bone. At the back of the pelvis, we have the tailbone. Now it's very difficult to actually press the tailbone, but if you place your hand on the back of your seat with your middle finger kind of running down your butt crack, that's pretty much where your tailbone is. So kind of touch there, press your finger in a little bit, just so you are making a mind-body connection to your tailbone. And then we have these two bony protrusions at the base of the pelvis, known as the ischial tuberosities, or more commonly, the sit bones. If you've ever taken a yoga class, you've heard a lot about the sit bones. Sit up on your sit bones, blah, blah, blah. Well, the reason being is because if we sit up on our sit bones, we have a beautifully neutral pelvis. If we sit back into our sacrum, think of your recliner, think of the bucket seats in your car, think of the way you might sit in your office chair, whatever. We get behind the sit bones, we shorten the pelvic floor, and we take the natural curve out of the low back, which can contribute to back pain. Now, if we tip forward of the sit bones, which is what I do, I call it duck butt, like I've got my little duck tail going back there. We're in front of the sit bones. It shortens the front of the pelvic floor and puts additional strain in the low back because now we have too much of a curve in the low back. So we like our sit bones. We like to sit up nice and tall on them, but I talk about that more in other videos. So for the purposes of our pelvic diamond, we're going to touch the sit bones now. So we did pubic bone, we got an idea of the tailbone. Now I'd like you to lift one side of your seat, place your fingers under your sit bone, and rock back and forth a little bit. Just kind of feel where that knobby bone presses down into your fingers. And then do the other side. Really, again, this is more to make a mind-body connection. And then go ahead and release. Pubic to tail, sit bone to sit bone. Those 4 points create our pelvic diamond. And our pelvic floor musculature attaches to all 4 of those bony landmarks. So how we move, how we stretch, how we breathe affects that pelvic diamond. So when we breathe, we want to think of diaphragmatic breathing, which is breathing down nice full body breaths. And when the respiratory diaphragm expands down, so too should the pelvic floor. And then when we exhale, there should be a nice little lift and contract. So thinking of the 4 points of the pelvic floor, mind-body connection. This is important because if we're trying to stretch, or we're trying to release and relax, or we're trying to improve our breathing, which is very important to healing a pelvic floor, we need to know or feel or connect with our pelvic floors. So thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next video.